Oh boy, does it feel great to be alive on a Thursday night or a Thursday evening or a Friday Eve on opening day. As a Chicago Cub baseball fan or what? Hey, Chicago Cub YouTube baseball fans, once again, happy opening day. As earlier today was the 2026 regular season and Wrigley Field home opener for our Chicago Cubs. They were playing host to the Washington Nationals, and in just a little bit we will talk about that game and the recap game day highlights, guys. But it's one of those days, I think every baseball fan says that opening night or opening day should be a national holiday. I definitely would agree with that. Just to say all things. But it's also, knowing that to date, from here on out, every game counts is just a beautiful thing. We don't have to go to worry about a spring training game where it nada doesn't count. So, to know that games actually count here on out is just a beautiful thing to realize, guys. And we got some really exciting news on Nico Hoerner, and we will talk about that as well in tonight's episode. Doesn't it feel great to be alive? So earlier today at the friendly confines, it was game one and home game number one of the 2026 season. But more importantly, it was the 2026 home opener and game one of a 162 MLB regular season. That is right, guys. It was the Washington Nationals from the NL East coming to Wrigleyville to begin a 3-game series against our Chicago Cubs. It was also game one of a 6-game opening homestand for the Chicago Cubs, guys. And everybody, that was at the friendly confines, that was a Cubs fan. They kind of expected a fly the W this afternoon, and we're going to get into the game right now, guys. It was none other than Matthew Boyd getting the opening day start. It would be the third time in his career that he is a opening day starter, but it would be the first time as a Chicago Cub that he would be getting the nod on opening day in entering his second year with the Cubbies, guys. And this is basically, Matthew Boyd started the game off pretty well. In the top of the first inning, he would set the Nationals down in order. He would strike out 2 out of the 3 batters he faced, and everything looked promising for the Cubbies on opening day. But then came the second inning, the top of the second inning. The Nats would only put 1 on the board, so really nothing too bad. But really, guys, what really blew open the game was the top of the 4th inning. That is when the game went a whole new direction and not in the way of the favor of the Chicago Cubs. The Washington Nationals would put up a big number. They would score 6 runs in the 4th inning, might I add, plus Matthew Boyd would not escape the 4th inning, and we will get back to that in just a little bit. But, really, guys, it was Blake Butera, the new manager for the Washington Nationals, guys, who really, Blake Butera, guys, and the Nationals really, looking at what the Nationals have done in the past couple of seasons, they have not been a playoff team since 2019. The last time the Nats were in the postseason was 2019. They actually started the 2019 regular season at a horrible rate. And that was also former Chicago Cubs bench coach Dave Martinez' first year managing the Nats, although Dave Martinez got fired last year in the middle of the 2025 regular season. But, the 2019 Nats, they started that season off horrible, and they ended up the season going to the playoffs and winning the 2019 World Series. But since then, the Nationals have not been at all a playoff team. And, the Cubs ending the season last year, going to the playoffs and having a heartbreaking loss to the Milwaukee Brewers in the NLDS, guys. But literally, guys, the game was going pretty well for Chicago and Matthew Boyd until that 4th inning. Then a 6-run top of the 4th inning by the Nationals, guys. And they sent everybody to the plate in the 4th inning. They actually would bat around and bippity-boppity-boo. The game changed in a heartbeat. The Cubs, they were able to come and score in the bottom of the 4th inning. The Cubs would send 5 men up to the plate in the bottom of the 4th, and they would only score 1 run, guys. But the story of the ball game was not in favor of the Chicago Cubs. It was all in favor of the Washington Nationals, guys. The Cubs had opportunities throughout the game. Even though it wasn't a lot, they had opportunities to do damage. They really never did. And, it comes to show you that, when, like I said, the Cubs had their moment, had their chances to make impact in the game and make it a little more interesting, and they failed every single time. So I can't really say much more about that, but I can say this, guys. The Washington Nationals were they were kind of like the state capitol Bombers, because the Washington, D.C. is where the Nationals play, and that is the capital of the USA. So, and the reason I say the Nats were the Capitol Bombers this afternoon is because they would hit 3 home runs in the ball game. And I don't think any Chicago Cubs fan had the Nats to hit 3 long balls on opening day. And, guys, I know that the wind, had something to do with it. The wind was kind of blowing in. There was a teeny tiny inch of rain throughout the game, but the Nationals, guys, they didn't play the cleanest game. All right, the Nats would make 2 errors in the ball game, and somehow, guys, they were still able to pull it together. Now, the Nationals, guys, they may have not played the cleanest ball game, and kind of what I mean is they made 2 errors. They walked a lot of batters throughout the game, and it kind of felt like every time the Nats were getting in trouble and we were going to see a potential spark from the Cubbies, it all ended. And you know, the Washington Nats coaching staff is a young coaching staff. I add, they have a new manager who is managing his first game ever. He's never been a manager before, guys. And you know, they really, the entire coaching staff except one guy on the Nationals is new. And the only guy they kept was the assistant pitching coach, Sean Doolittle. But guys, I mean, if anything was a positive today, it was a positive day for the Washington Nationals. All right, I don't even think any Chicago Cub fan would think that the Nationals would score double-digit runs on the Wrigley Field home opener. Yes, guys, the Nationals scored 10 runs on opening day, and those 10 runs were at the friendly confines at Wrigley Field, guys. And I think after everything I just said, you guys probably know how the day went for the Cubbies. Unfortunately, guys, it was a rough outing. And on the 2026 Wrigley Field home opener, the Nationals come in and they go yard 3 times, scored 10 runs for double digits, and they take game 1 of a 3-game series 10-4. That is the bad news. The good news is now there is 161 more games remaining for the Chicago Cubs in the season. Whole lot of more baseball to be played. It's only game 1 and day 1 of the regular season, guys. But if you want to look at another bad thing, technically this is a 2-game losing streak for the Chicago Cubs. The last time they were in a MLB stadium was when they lost to the Milwaukee Brewers to end them in the postseason. So now the Chicago Cubs kind of have a 2-game losing streak going back to that game in the postseason, guys. You know what, guys? I understand that, you know, it's only day 1 and game 1, but when you look at it in a unique way, going back to the postseason of last year, that's now a 2-game losing streak for the Chicago Cubs, guys. And, you know, the Cubs had their chances throughout the game. Like I said, they 100% had their chances to make an impact during the game, and they just could not do it. And Matthew Boyd, guys, would go 3 2/3. And I want to read the scoreline for Matthew Boyd. So he would go 3 2/3. He gave up 6 hits, 6 runs. He only walked a batter. He did get 7 strikeouts, and he gave up 1 home run. But Matthew Boyd not even able to get through 5 innings and couldn't even make it out of the 4th inning, guys. And you know, we all know the story of Matthew Boyd on how his granddad was a big Chicago Cub baseball fan. Don't get me wrong, his granddad is still smiling at him from the baseball heavens because his grandson was the Wrigley Field home opener in 2026 for the Chicago Cubs, guys. But it didn't go in the way of any Cub fan, you know. 10-4, the final score, guys. And I don't really think, you know, everybody had the best day. Although, guys, Alex Bregman had a hit in the game, so he got his first hit technically as a Chicago Cub. But, you know, the Cubs scored 4 runs and they had 8 hits in the ball game. The Nationals 10 runs on 12 hits. And yeah, so maybe another good way to say it is at least the Chicago Cubs got their first loss out of the way. But, on the home opening day, definitely not like the day the Cubs fans hoped for. But you know what, guys? The good news is now there is 161 games remaining in the 2026 Cubs regular season. And now, guys, it is the breaking news that we have, guys, and it regards the next Chicago Cub to get an extension, none other than Nico Hoerner. Guys, I got to be honest with you, I am a very, very big fan of this. I think Nico Hoerner, number one, he is a favorite of the Chicago Cubs without a doubt. Deserves the extension. We just talked about Pete Catches Anything and Everything PCA, Pete Crow Armstrong, getting the extension, and now we turn ours to Nico Hoerner, and it secures a spot, in Chicago for Nico. The past number of seasons, including postseason and spring training, I think the energy, the vibe that Nico Hoerner brings is amazing, and the respect of the game of baseball that Nico Hoerner has, okay? And I'm going to use a funny example, but I'm going to go back to the game 3 of a 3-game series in Detroit last summer, when Nico Hoerner was called out on strikes and ejected. And he got ejected for telling the home plate umpire that, hey, you're having a bad day. And yes, Nico Hoerner would end up getting ejected for that. It would be the first time Nico Hoerner would be ejected as a MLB ball player, but it's right then and there how he treats even the umpires with the utmost respect. Nico Hoerner, even after he got the hee-ho, he was very polite and very, very respectful, guys. And, around the game, you see a lot of guys like Nico Hoerner. You see the talent pretty much on every team. At least one person on every MLB team is somehow like Nico Hoerner with the talent, but the respect off the field and how much he wants to be in Chicago. Remember, guys, when we were in the offseason a few months ago, we were talking about the San Francisco Giants having a huge interest in Nico Hoerner. Then the Bronx Bombers, the Yankees, having a big interest in Nico Hoerner. And there was a potential chance that heading into 2026 Chicago Cubs spring training, Nico Hoerner could not be a Chicago Cub and all that. And now the Cubs ending up to extend him to at least 6 more years, guys. And, that puts the nail in the coffin for at least 6 more seasons. And, Nico Hoerner also can live up to the hype. He can live up to the pressure. And he's one of the nicest guys. I don't think anytime someone has asked for a photo or an autograph, he has declined. It just shows that number one, most importantly, he was raised right. But really, number 2 is he enjoys the game of baseball. He enjoys playing the game of baseball. He enjoys being around with the fans on Gallagher Way, no matter where he is in Chicago, guys. And he's also one of those guys that when he is in a slump, you kind of don't have to be too worried about it. He's going to get himself out of that slump eventually and get back to the ball player we all know he is. So, very excited and happy for Mr. Nico Hoerner. Of course, congratulations are in order, guys, because I mean, like, literally, about a player who gets ejected and still treats the umpire who ejected him with the utmost respect is extremely rare in the game today. And I think, there's not a lot of guys in MLB who have the utmost respect for the game of baseball off the field and on the field that Nico Hoerner does. And you can't say that a lot about MLB players or even an athlete in any given sport. So, I think that's a lot to be said. Again, well-deserved and well-earned by Nico Hoerner. Can't be any more proud of him than I am right now. And definitely Chicago is as well. So, even though it was a rough game today at the friendly confines, we can end the night and end the day with knowing that Nico Hoerner extended for 6 more Chicago Cubs seasons. And, now we don't have to worry that at the trade deadline, he could be going to another team, because that is also in the clause of the extension deal that he can't, there's no opt-out of it. And, I think it's mutual on both sides that Nico Hoerner is a happy individual, So, but I definitely wanted to talk about that at least to end this episode. But I also want to get your guys' input on it. What do you guys think about this with Nico Hoerner? So definitely let me know down below in the comment section. All right, guys, I think Cub Nation, I'm going to put that at a good place to end the video. But before I do, guys, I bet you guys aren't, somehow sad that, today was not a good day for the Chicago Cubs. I got to watch the Cubs game today with some of my good friends. And, my good friend made me try a Chicago dog, and it was the first time I tried a real Chicago dog, and boy, was it delicious. But, my friend that I watched the game with, when after the Cubs, got the final out, he's like, Rhino, that's embarrassing that, the Cubs lost in the Nats. And I can understand that, I mean, look at the Nationals' track record, not really that good or that promising. However, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. The Cubs had their opportunities throughout the game. The Nationals did not play the cleanest of ball games, and yet the Nationals got into jams with the Cubbies, and they were able to avoid trouble. And it's kind of like one of those games really where the Nats were just the better off team, and it pains probably every Cub fan to hear that, but it is the truth. The Cubs did make one error, but look at what the Nats did. They did something I don't think a lot of people had on the bingo card. They scored 10 runs, number one. That's number one. And they hit 3 long balls in the game, especially with the wind blowing in. And that right there says a lot. And, I know it's painful to hear, and I know you guys don't want to hear it, but there's really not much I can say about it. I can't deny what the Nats did. They were the better team. They took advantage of opportunities they had when they were hitting. And, that's something, maybe that is a learning experience for the Cubbies. I mean, they made adjustments. The Nationals hitters made adjustments on Matthew Boyd, okay? I think if the Cubbies had the lead and they got Gasolina of Daniel Palencia in, it would have probably ended in the favor of the Chicago Cubs. But, today was just not one of those days. Maybe there was a little bit of excitement or a little bit of nerves. I actually can't tell you that, but I can tell you this, guys. The great news is after 2 days ball game, there was 161 Chicago Cub regular season games left. Plenty of time to win the NL Central and plenty of time to make a postseason berth for the second year in a row. And also, plenty of more time for me to have more of those Chicago dogs. But, guys, hats off to the Nationals. Like I said, guys, they were the better team. They went out and they capitalized on their opportunities. And you know what? They were able to score 10 runs on the road on opening day. And you gotta tip your hat to them at least on that. So, but, so I'm going to stop here, guys. So drop a like if you enjoyed. Make sure you subscribe down below if you haven't already. The Chicago Cubs do not play tomorrow, but tomorrow it will be opening day and the home opener for the Iowa Cubs. So for any of you Iowa Cub baseball fans, happy opening day eve. The Cubs and the Nats will resume this 3-game series on Saturday afternoon. It will be Michaelis for the Nats. It will be Cade Horton for the Cubbies. So I want to know, at least I want to know down below, guys, how deep in the game on Saturday afternoon do you think Cade Horton will go? Let me know down below in the comment section. But other than that, guys, have a great rest of your night. I'll see you all in the next episode.